Hey everyone, welcome back to Level Zero Literacy. As always, I am Mason, and I am so happy you have joined us this week for I Was the Teenage Exocolonist, a delightful little visual novel that we have all played and we are excited to bring to you. As always, we're going to spoil the game from beginning to end, and we're going to discuss topics that include, but are not limited to, childhood trauma, death, and dismemberment. Please use your best judgment before proceeding, and enjoy.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Level Zero Literacy, the internet's premier video game book club podcast. Today we're talking about the 2022 nominee for Games for Impact, I Was a Teenage Exocolonist. Joining me as always is Mason.
Hello.
And Buck.
I've lived so many lives.
Exocolonist is a mixed visual novel and deck builder game and was developed by Northwest Games. You play as Sol, a teenager growing up on the alien planet of Vertumna 4. You must navigate the perils of living on an alien planet while also surviving with your own interpersonal relationships with the rest of the teens and adults in the colony. How will your decisions impact the survival of the people you love and live with? Let's find out. Gentlemen, how do we enjoy Exocolonist?
This is a pretty good game.
I wish I could have gotten like 5 more playthroughs in.
Yeah, definitely a multi playthrough to kind of get all of the essence of the game type of thing.
Yeah.
But even 2 playthroughs, which is what I played, and I think what you played, Buck, right? I got a lot out of this game, which is surprising because at the outset I thought that I was not. Within the first 5 hours, I was like, I'm not really going to like this game. But I was pleasantly surprised by the end.
Yeah, to give the listeners some context, I've played this game for 23 hours and beaten the game twice, seen 3 endings, and there's still a lot more that I don't know and want to do and never will be able to because we make this podcast.
Yeah.
There's a lot. There's a lot of endings. There's a lot of stuff that requires you to do very specific things. And so, one of the weaknesses I think there is with this game is there is a point where it's kind of like you are compelled to look up a guide to do the specific thing you want to do.
Absolutely. Because you can do so much stuff that feels good to do. In my second playthrough, I had 6 stats maxed out by the time I was 17.
Yeah. God almighty.
And that doesn't do anything. I achieved all those high stats and stuff, but I can't really use them for anything.
Yeah, it depends on what you're trying to do. Yeah. It's interesting because a lot of the stats, realistically, most of the stuff that matters is the stuff you do outside the walls stat-wise when you go exploring. Really, the only stats you need if you're staying inside of the colony for most of your playthrough are the intellect stats, because that's what's going to give you access to the science stuff that you need to do to get the special endings. So this game essentially has 20-something endings. 29 endings, but about 2/3 of those endings are just you get a different job. So, you play from the characters' Sol's age 10 to 19, and then the game ends at the end of year 19. And if you basically just play through the game normally and don't do anything specific, at the end of the game you were assigned a job, pretty much whatever you spent the majority of your time doing, or if you overthrew Lum as governor, then you get the governor job or whatever. So we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about those endings specifically, but we'll touch on some of the big special endings that I think really capture the core essence of this game. But before we get to that, I want to kind of talk about the world building, because I feel like that is far and away the best aspect of this game. And it's nice because I really enjoy how the developers worked to make something that was a progressively minded piece of work without it feeling really stilted. It felt grounded in the world that it was in, you know?
Is this our first sort of futuristic spacefaring type of sci-fi game that we've covered? We've done sci-fi, but is this the first like this genre?
I think so.
I believe so, yeah.
So this is like baked into this kind of genre, the, you know, far future planet exploring type of stuff is this critique of the time that the author is in.
Yeah.
And this is the first time we've really been able to explore a game with writing like that, and it was really nice. It was really nice.
And I love, and just like Disco Elysium, there are critiques of the methods of the progressive tendencies of this game. Like it doesn't just kind of let loose and just be like, oh, look how happy and good everything is. There are like issues within this society that people have to address and have to sort of come to terms with as a result of being a part of society they're in. And I always appreciate when writers and creators can be critical of their own ideal societies.
Yeah, shows a lot of maturity. And I mean, it helped in this game that the setting was a space colony, you know, like the first space colony kind of fighting for survival. What I appreciated the most about sort of the exploration of a far future, sort of far progressed past our own sort of mindset and social tendencies type of world was they explored some things that I didn't expect that I found that were pleasantly like written very well. The one thing I'm thinking of specifically is in my second playthrough, while I was cooking, two of the characters had a debate about eating meat.
Yeah.
But in this society, no one has ever eaten meat before. They subsist like almost entirely on soybeans. So like they had the eating meat debate, but from like the opposite of how it is normally framed in like real life, right?
Yeah.
Where eating meat is like normal. This character who's trying to get people to eat meat is like, well, you know, back on Earth, lots of people did this. Nutritionally, it's very good for you, and we don't have a lot of food right now.
Which characters were talking about this?
Tammy.
It's Tammy and antecedent.
Okay.
So the soldiers land in the late part of the year and start hunting, which is, you know, not ever done before. And she brings like I forget what like a mantis or something. She's like, we need to cook the meat. And Tammy's like, what the fuck? I'm not eating flesh. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And, you know, antecedent's like, we don't have any food. Like, you can definitely do it. Humans have been eating meat forever. You gotta.
Yeah. I saw a different eating meat debate.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So
You probably saw one with Cal, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So in my second playthrough, I spent a lot of time with Anemone and Cal. And one time when we were tending the animals, it was time for the bush slug, one of the bush slugs, to be slaughtered.
Yeah.
And Anemone was like, delicious bush slug.
Yum, yum, yum.
And Cal was like, let's not do this. Let's not eat this. And then what ended up happening, I was like, let's just let the little guy go. And so Cal and Anemone were just arguing. Anemone's argument was like, we're omnivores. We should eat the meat. Blah, blah, blah.
We have teeth built for eating flesh.
And because they were so engrossed in their argument, I was able to just sneak away with the animal and let him go.
You just be free, bristle slug.
Just like slooped away.
I really love all the creature designs in this game. They're like just alien enough for you to believe that it's an alien planet, but they're also like endearing enough to make you care.
Yeah.
I like that they didn't just make everything like mammals that could conceivably exist on Earth.
Yeah.
There's some animals that's like, oh yeah, this is like, if this was on Earth, we would think it's a plant. Or like, yeah, this is like, if this is on Earth, we would think it's a mushroom. And you could like learn a lot about the local flora if you take a bunch of natural science classes. And eventually they'll be like, oh yeah, on this planet, fungus and plants and animals didn't evolve very far away from each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why all these things kind of overlap. You have these things that are like, they're called mantises. They're called mantises. They're big. They look kind of like big praying mantises, but they've got like
You talking about the manticores?
or manticores. Sorry,
Yeah.
they look like big praying mantises, and they have like foliage growing all over them. And you have bristle slugs, which have literally
Berries.
they're like half bush.
Yeah. It's really cool. I really like I can appreciate the designs of all the creatures because I can tell they actually put all this like thought and effort into the design and making sure everything was just like they tuned the knobs like just right for me. Because when you get your first Vriki as a pet, you're like, oh yes, I have a Vriki.
I named mine. So they have. I assume the name list is like set, and I named mine Ricky Tiki because it's a reference to Ricky Tiki Taffy. I guess.
Yeah. I named mine Vri Larson. I kept naming mine after celebrities. I had a pony. I had like a weird alien-looking unicorn at one point. It was following me around. I was like, "There's no way the adults are cool with this."
So let's get into the meat and potatoes of this game, which is the characters. I feel so really there's two sides to this game. If you stay inside of the colony for the majority of the game, it is a very character driven, text heavy, figure out what's going on with the relationships between people and like solve the issues of the colony type game.
Yeah.
But when you go outside of the colony, it becomes very much about the world building, the exploration, figuring out what this alien planet's all about.
Which is very hard to do because in 2 playthroughs, I still don't really know, right? Like, there's so much exploring to do.
There's a lot, yeah.
And it's like, you can also pick different ways of exploring and different ways of interacting with the things that you see outside. And based on what you do with that, you learn different things.
Yeah.
I'm going to say something I think might be the controversial take of the episode. I think the character work is very middling, very just okay.
For about half the characters, I agree.
I think it depends on the characters because I think
if half the characters are middling,
Yeah.
then your character work is middling.
Yeah.
I mean, like you can name a couple of characters who are very well written and have a lot of interesting things about them in development, but like, then the writers decided to make a bunch of middling characters.
Yeah.
I think the exploration, I had a lot more fun on my first playthrough when I went outside the colony constantly. I did a bunch of stuff with the alien world, and I was like, oh, I think these people were much more inspired, and they were doing a lot more creative and cool things when they were shaping this alien world.
Yeah.
And the secret endings also
revolve around most of the secret endings revolve around exploration of the planet.
And my complaints with the characters is like they kind of, and this is going to sound crazy for a sci-fi game, but like they really disrupted my suspension of disbelief a lot when they would be like, oh yeah, we make genetically modified children. We're going to an alien planet. What would be the single worst thing you could give a child going to an alien planet? Oh, let's make them not feel any fear. Well, you're dooming that child to die. If you're like, fear is like super useful. And there's like another child, and it's like, oh yeah, we programmed our child to not feel any shame. It's like, okay, shame is also...
is that Mars?
That's Mars, yeah.
Okay.
Mars,
like,
that's Mars augmented.
Shame is like pretty useful socially to get you to not act like an asshole. And it's like, well, I get like,
Well, I mean, I don't think the writers wanted you to perceive the genetically modifying children thing as just a cool, positive part of their society, right?
Yeah, I think there's to me, there's a lot of parts of that are, this is something that we do to try to make things better.
To try to make like ultra extreme humans.
Yeah.
Right?
But it wasn't like I wasn't viewing it as a in the frame of mind of, oh, the people didn't make society better. I was viewing the frame of mind of like, this kind of breaks just like the first base level of thinking of like, what would people realistically do?
Yeah.
Like why on earth would you make a child that can't feel fear?
That's the
that
thing
makes
with
sense.
how do we want to pronounce
Dis.
Dis?
I'd just say
I say dis.
That's the thing with Dis, right? Like, making a child without fear is actually a very stupid thing to do if you're trying to get people to like cooperate. Dis has, if Dis is not scared, he has no fear of the repercussions of his actions, right? Like, but I mean, I think Dis is one of the not middling characters, though. I think both Tangent and Dis are super interesting.
Tangent's I think the high point of the characters in the game, but it's partially because she plays such a big part in how you can manipulate the world.
Yeah.
I think the best characters are Marzipan and either Lum or Anemone.
Lum's great.
Lum is interesting. Can I
Just
ask
from
why
his perspective.
why Anemone? Because like I tried to get into Anemone and
She tells a very interesting and a very human story to me of someone who experiences like the loss of someone who they're very close to, who undergoes like a very traumatic thing, and then this sort of new ideology, this new idea that acts as an outlet for those emotions, for that pent up sort of aggression and trauma and sadness comes along, and she falls headfirst into it, and she kind of changes a lot. You see her kind of shift her ideals. You see her convictions change a lot. You see her fall in with people who are like very unethical people as a way to, as like a misguided way.
can you save her brother?
No.
Okay.
Can never happen.
Yeah, that is...
I tried really hard.
Yeah. Of all the deaths in this game, Nemi's brother, Calm, is literally the only one that is not preventable. That is the only one you cannot prevent.
Because so like in my second playthrough, I romanced Anemone. Like,
Yeah.
she's the person I maxed out in my second playthrough, mainly because I wanted to get her away from fucking Vase.
We'll talk about this.
When I did it, it was a very combat exploration focused playthrough, and like I stomped the Faceless, and then her brother still died.
Yeah, Calm still does.
And it says in that, like, even though this was only my second playthrough, it does say when you beat the Faceless, it literally doesn't matter what you do, you can't save him. Like, the game says that.
Well, if you go into the advisory warnings,
Spoiler warning, or the
advisory warnings of the game, it says in there like you can't. That's the one you can't stop, and it's because Calm's death is just so important to Nemi's story arc.
Yeah.
Now, could they have written two different arcs for her if he lived or died? Yes, they could have, but that wasn't what they wanted to do.
They didn't want to.
Here's what I wanted out of Anemone. Is I wanted to save her brother and then like use her to revolution against the
Lum.
Yeah,
That'd be cool.
That's what I wanted to do.
Well,
that's what I hoped for, and
they already had Marzipan, who was doing that exact storyline.
I guess that's one of my disappointments with, like, there's a lot of choice in the game, but they have something specific in mind for how you make those choices to get certain things to happen.
Yeah.
Because I thought that, like, if I was very popular and successful, like, in combat against Vase and, like, a big part of the defense of the colony, that I would be able to do, like, a more military-style coup, right? But you can't do that.
Yeah.
That's not really a thing you can do.
So let's talk about I think we can really lay out the disparate levels of character work in this game by comparing two characters, which is Mars and Vase.
Yeah,
They
for
are
sure.
they are two sides of the same coin, where they are both unlikable. They're written to be unlikable people, for the most part. You know, they are written to be stubborn, kind of pig-headed types of people. And usually, the thing is, when you encounter those types of characters in games, there is a level of, oh, this person is an asshole, but once I get to know them better, I'm going to understand the things that make them the way they are. And you get that with Mars. I think, you know, it's a mix of her augment, which is that she feels no shame, but also, like, if you look at her upbringing with her dads spoil the crap out of her, you know? She's very used to getting her own way with the other kids in the colony. There are reasons behind her upbringing, and there are reasons into her future why she is the way she is. But when you interact with Vase, you never really get much of that feeling ever. And the more you interact with him, the less you want to interact with him, because you never really get those glimpses into his more humane side.
Yeah, it truly feels like he is, you know, he's drunk the Kool-Aid, and like he is the epitome of a colonizer to me.
Yeah. And I would say that it would be, you know, like my first instinct is to say, oh, that's because he's part of this second group of people that comes in halfway through the game. You have less time, but the other characters that arrive on Lum's ship, the Rex, I spent a lot of time with. I found very pleasant, very well written. What's the gamer girl?
Nomi.
I talked.
They're non-binary.
Nomi are non-binary.
Yeah.
Nami. I talked a lot with them, and they were very interesting. They had a lot of very cool dialogue.
Chill. They have a lot of wild cards they add into your deck.
They do. It's very weird.
They do a lot of artistic projects, and they're not very successful usually, but you know,
But Vase has no redeeming qualities. It's very frustrating to interact with him, and he just constantly criticizes you, acts like a huge shithead. I mean, even Marzipan, when Marzipan is criticizing you and being mean, there's things you can do to kind of get to the core of Marzipan to find the humanity. When Marzipan is bullying people, you stand up to Marzipan, and then she'll be like, "Oh yeah, thank you for doing that. I was just trying to let these people grow some backbone. We're on a hostile planet." Vase is an asshole to you. If you're an asshole back, he just gets really upset and leaves or calls you a shithead. It's this is. God,
He also
I hate you.
Did you go hunting with Vase?
I did. I explored everything on the first playthrough, including the swamp, right?
swamp
Yeah.
where you go hunting.
He just wants to fucking kill everything, and he's sadistic.
Yes.
Now, I there's a part of me that wonders if Vase is the only other person in the colony that's aware of what's going on. So there is. Did we already talk? Did we already talk about the?
No, the ending.
So if you join the Secret Fun Times Club and you pursue overthrowing Lum as governor, you eventually find out that there is a fleet of humans that are going to be arriving onto Vertumna. And if they find that you and the
Colony,
the Stratospheric and the other ship have not successfully tamed the planet in time, they're going to scorched earth the whole thing before the humans land. Now, I don't know if I believe Lum when he says that. There's never really actual evidence.
Yeah, and in the ending, it just says they show up, and that's a story for another time. So it doesn't tell you.
That was a thing on my second playthrough. I was I haven't done any Secret Fun Times Club. Are these guys? Is this going to be a big third act, dramatic client? It's just oh no, yeah, you're a farmer now, and they show up and
now
what?
But so there's a part of me that wonders if Vase, as sort of the hero child soldier of that ship, is kind of gets fed some extra inside info from Lum, and that's why Vase is so. So yeah, I don't want to make excuses for Vase, but there are like fragments of the story where it's like Lum and Vase's relationship is in such a way that I could see that being a possibility, but it's never something that they explore. I think there are definitely some missed opportunities in this game, and that is what I think is one of the biggest weaknesses, is just there are dialogue things that could have happened and I think would have really just finished putting all the pieces together. And I don't know if they just wanted to focus on other aspects of the game, or they just ran out of developer time, what.
I can guarantee you they ran out of time, right? Like, it has to be they ran out of time, because, I mean, this is an indie game, right?
Yeah.
Like, I am impressed at how much an indie studio was able to do, like, at all with this game, because this game feels like a huge risk, right?
Yeah,
because like this game is very specifically for a certain set of people, and like I don't think that set of people is very large.
It's weird. It's it's very progressive.
Yeah, it's very progressive, and that would turn gamers off.
Yeah, it's a deck builder, which isn't necessarily always the most popular type of game. If it's not a roguelike.
It's a genre that doesn't mash well with visual novels normally. So they're doing a lot of risky things. I don't want to spend the whole time harping on the writing.
I think most of the writing's... I think the writing is very good.
So
the planet,
not all the character work is good, but the writing itself
is good. Exploring outside the colony was genuinely super interesting, and I found really cool. I could tell they put their whole backs into writing out the flora and fauna, the alien colony. Like, there's a lot of like mystery and things like really make sense, but they're like laid out in such a way to where there's like this mystique to it and this danger to it that really like mirrors the planet very well, and it makes you curious. And then this alien guy shows up, and he is this like strange dude who can like fly and teleport, and exploring the planet is very, very cool. Very cool.
Why don't we talk about moments?
Yeah, let's get into one moments.
I would love to do my moment.
Oh, Mason, why don't you go first then?
Fuck. Okay, my one moment. About 3 hours into this game, I was really considering asking people to drop it, and I text the group chat, and I was like, "This is a children's game. This is a game for kids."
Yeah, I was sitting with you in Discord.
This is not going to be mentally challenging at all, because you start the game in universe as a 10-year-old. You play 10 to 19, and it's like, oh, pick your favorite toy. Oh, mommy's coming. Do you want to give her a hug or give daddy a hug? And I was like, Sam, why the hell are we playing this? This is stupid. This is going to be about like how friendship is nice or something. It's not going to be challenging. It's going to be stupid.
Did you not read the trigger warnings?
He did not.
His ass did not read the trigger warnings.
His ass did
not read the trigger warnings. My moment was 2 hours later. I was in the colony. I was like 12 years old.
I think you're 11.
Or 11. And
it's one of the very first things that happened.
One of the things, so like one day, all the kids gather around the kind of midwife and babysitter of the entire colony, antecedent, and she's giving out cotton candy, and you're all having fun and playing together. And then an adult rushes in and is like, everyone come quick, and you run to the creche.
Yeah.
You run to the creche, and you see Tammy's dead body, having been her neck broken and electrocuted to death. I was like, what happened? And then over the next 2 hours of playing, I proceeded to have Tammy's father get wheeled in with his neck ripped out. Tammy's dad wheeled into the colony with his neck ripped out by a manticore, and then the mayor killed by a bunch of animals.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I get it. Like, wait a minute.
This game's very brutal.
It's like,
there's a lot of death.
Like over the course of my first playthrough, my father died of an alien disease. My mother literally worked herself to death. All these, there's just like, you're surrounded by all this death and suffering. And that kiddish sort of atmosphere never really leaves, which kind of adds to the horror and creepiness of it all. Makes a lot of things hit like a lot worse.
Yeah.
Because like, there's still, you're like 15 and some people are like, oh, you're just a kid. Like you don't, you like, and like your character processes things like a 15-year-old would. And, you're trying to deal with flirting, having your first girlfriend and navigating high school and understanding like what you want to do when you grow up. And like, literally it's like, oh yeah, your science teacher got decapitated. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah. There's a whole lot that happens in this game. And so like when Mason was sending these messages about the child game, I'm like, Mason, you just haven't played visual novels, have you?
No, and I haven't. I don't play them a lot.
Because like these kind of traumatic events are what a lot of like visual novels explore. Is like you're playing and everything seems cool, and then like there's just a disaster,
and then everything goes horribly wrong.
I'll talk about my moment now.
Go for it.
My moment came in my second playthrough. My first playthrough was very science-focused. I romanced Tangent, spent a lot of time with Tangent, and Tangent's brother is Dis. I ended up not liking Dis a lot in the first playthrough, and it was really annoying. Like, it seemed like you put Tangent through a lot, even though Tangent's, like, not the most interesting... Like, well, not interesting. She's not the most, like, loving sister, right?
She's not a very agreeable person.
Neither of them are, really.
And like, her issue is like she's a very passionate scientist. And I really like Tangent. I highly recommend going through Tangent's arc in one playthrough if you play this game. Because it's awesome.
She's one of the best characters to me.
Yeah. And in my second playthrough, since I was going out a lot, I managed... Like, I hung out with Dis quite a bit. And in one of the conversations with Dis, you find out Tangent is trans.
Yeah.
And you literally don't find that out the entire time when you're, like, romancing Tangent and hanging out with Tangent. Yeah. And
it never comes... Because why would it?
Yeah. It wouldn't matter, right? And so, like, Dis... It was interesting to get to see Dis's side of the story, because one of Dis's things is like, these people told me like I shouldn't be sad about losing my brother.
Yeah. And that's a really great thing, because that's a big thing we're having right now, where people, there's this whole thing where people are more... I've like read stories of where, married couples, one of them realizes that they're transgender and starts going through the transition, and the person's like, is it okay for me to mourn the loss of my husband even though I still love my wife? Like, is that an acceptable thing to do? That's just like, it's a really interesting moral quandary. And I think the answer is yes, it's perfectly acceptable for somebody to do that, as long as you are being a reasonable person about it. But you're right. That's like a very human approach to that situation, because like it should be something that's celebrated, and that they're finding what they're comfortable being, how they're comfortable living.
And like part
change is hard.
Yeah, and like part of Dis's point there is like, I never really cared. I kind of always knew, right? But then this is like, but like Tangent's kind of not a good person.
Yeah.
And that moment like felt pretty good to me, because it made it feel more worth it to do like a second playthrough, which a game like this needs to do.
Yeah.
Right?
One of the legitimately good things they do with character work in this game is you add a lot of texture to the characters by getting to know the people around them. You can never learn like the full story of a character by only
talking to them.
Just talking to the one character. For Anemone, you learn more by doing guard duty and playing sports ball and talking with Vase. And for Dis and Tangent, it's you talk with one another. For Cal, you learn a lot by going farming,
talking to Tammy.
Yeah, talking with Tammy, and then talking with your parents. It's like everyone like adds perspective to all these other characters, because you get these like little slices of people, and that slice is supposed to represent a month. But that is legitimately like a good. I know I spent like 20 minutes harping on the character writing, but in that regard, they did very good.
So my one moment involves Tangent as well. So as you're sort of playing through the game and you're developing out your scientific interests, eventually you have this little scene where Tangent's like, yeah, I'm tinkering with human DNA to like bring about the next step of human evolution and like improve the lives of everybody. And you're like, huh, this sounds a lot like eugenics, Tangent. Maybe we shouldn't be doing this. And it's like in the grand scope of the game, it's a very small scene, right? But it really hit for me because, as I was sort of alluding to earlier, I really respect this game calling out aspects of its own society, and like these are things that could be issues if we don't address them properly when we get to this point. Because everyone in this society, all the children in this society have some kind of augments that enhances their abilities in some kind of way. You as the player get to even pick your own augments. You can be like strong, you can have extra fingers, you can have super good eyesight. The other kids like Nimi can grow scales whenever she gets injured. It's just replaced by like a patch of scales. So that's a really cool concept. But obviously the next logical, to someone who is more logic brained, the next logical step would be, oh, what if we can evolve humans in this way? What if we keep tinkering and make other things better, right? Quote unquote better. That's a subjective term, obviously. Yeah. So to me, that's when I got, oh, these people understand. And it was a similar thing with Disco Elysium. Oh, these people understand that just because these things in society have been addressed, or like this is our sort of ideology and our ideal outlook on the world, there's still going to be these overlying issues that we need to address. And there are even like instances where they talk about, we do communal upbringing of all the children in the colony. It's all the children get raised through the creche. And it's like, well, that comes with its own issues, like versus just like regular parenting,
and
right?
There's also like, the thought out thing of people don't really have their own genetic children.
Yeah.
In the colony.
Yeah, everything is.
Oh, I never got this.
Basically, everything is done in vitro fertilization, and all the children are meant to be like amalgamations of the DNAs of multiple different people. And part of it is that
there's not enough people.
So back on Earth, yeah. So part of it's there's not enough people, so they need the gene pool
wide enough.
So what they did is, I don't know if either of you know about this yet. Back on Earth, the stratospheric was basically built by. This is Earth, like in the not too far distant future. Climate change has like ravaged the Earth. There's been like
post Norco.
Yeah, there's been there's been lots of like war over resources and stuff. And the stratospheric came about because there was this small kind of like communist society of people that were being attacked by a more like national government system. And so what they did is they built a spaceship looting. They like looted all of these places to like put a spaceship together.
I thought the Stratospheric was built by a giant company and then they stole it from the giant company.
Sort of, yeah. That's like sort of it. So, but the thing is, not all the people that were living in that commune could leave on the ship.
Right.
So what they did is they got genetic materials from all those people, and the idea is that their children, the children that are going to be born in the future on the ship and into the future, are going to carry on the genetic legacy of the people that were left behind on Earth. The sacrifice that those people made to allow these people to get a second chance at life. And it's really poetic, and I really like how they do it.
By the way, Mason, the way I found that out is hanging out with Cal. One of the dialogue choices is like, "Are you disappointed it's not yours?"
Yeah.
And that's how you find out.
Yeah, when Tammy and Cal are having their first kid.
Didn't say that because I was like, oh, I would be a monster. That's so fucked up to say.
And well, I mean, what Cal says is, who knows? We weren't exactly being careful when she had her birth control turned off.
Oh, I see.
Because, like, you know, and you wouldn't know that. You wouldn't know that it is normal for the child to not be theirs if you didn't know
But that's just how their society is.
Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. It's me, Santa Claus, here to tell all Level 0 literacy listeners that I have run out of presents for Mason, Buck, and Sam, and the only way they're going to experience any Christmas cheer is if you open your wallets and give them tons and tons of money. Or, if you do not want to do that, boost all of their social media feeds. Anyway, this has been me, Santa Claus. Let's return to the episode. Ho, 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 Christmas. It's so weird. The first playthrough, I was just like saying whatever the fuck to people, and I was doing things because I was like, oh, this would be cool. You know, I was just like throwing caution to the wind, and like my playthrough was much more exciting. My teenager turned out to be way cooler and way more, just like lived a way more exciting life. And then in playthrough 2, I was like, I'm going to be more measured. I'm going to keep these like relationships really like on the level. I'm not going to alienate anyone. And then I like lived like an average life, and everything was just like, I failed a lot at things.
Yep.
And I was like, I liked playthrough 1 a lot better. And, you know, one of the things I missed on playthrough 2 is I spent a lot of time with Tammy and Cal, and I missed out on learning what that was like. And Sam was like, oh, yeah, you're going to learn about the colony's birthing system on this playthrough. And I just didn't. I was like, I must not have spent enough time babysitting or something.
Didn't pick the right dialogue options, didn't talk to the right people.
Yeah.
Well, and like that is a
Positive and a negative.
Yeah, it's not obvious how to get the most interesting things in the game.
Which, I mean, that's realistic. That's cool. I don't mind that. I would actually not prefer it if there was a very clear-cut dialogue choice that was like, that this is where the juice is. Because then you just never choose the other ones. This one gives you, like, the way it's written gives you, like, motivation to choose what you might realistically want to say, given your teenager, your soul for that playthrough.
Let's talk about the endings. Let's talk about the special endings a little bit. So there's one special ending that I know you're both aware of.
Yep.
It is the ending I got on my first playthrough. Mason got on his first playthrough. And Buck probably should have gotten it, but just might have made some small mistakes somewhere.
Well, so let me explain what happened. I went out when it was supposed to happen. Because I had max all stats, I just went to the ridge and the faceless wasn't there. Because you have to interact with the blue things to get the faceless to show up. So I ended up getting a normal ending on that playthrough. And then when I just reloaded my save from going out during glow and interacted with the blue things to get the faceless to show up.
Interesting. Yeah. That's a very weird prerequisite.
Yeah.
So essentially, when you go out, you can find this like array system that shows you a future where you go out during glow, and eventually you go out and you find this faceless, but it doesn't attack you, and you basically just huff a bunch of spores, and then your
While
mind,
you're staring at the wormhole.
your mind or your soul like transcends time, and that is the canonical ending, quote unquote.
Well, it's
Because-
canonically
it's
what
the
causes
first.
the game to exist.
The
Yeah.
first ending. That is canonically
Which-
the thing that happened in the first timeline.
That is the
Yeah.
thing that happens that causes everything else to happen
Yeah.
the way it does.
Because effectively your character gets stretched across both existence and non-existence.
Yeah.
To where you perceive everything all at once. And so, like, that's why your character lives many, many, many lives.
And why you get to do all these playthroughs.
Yeah.
And make different choices, which I love.
I think this is a very interesting setup for it, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's obviously just sci-fi, but, like, I think it's very good. Like, I don't want to say feasible sci-fi because it's just like magic, right? But it makes perfect sense to me with my physics knowledge and knowing what a wormhole is. That, like, if
It's
you're
a puncture through space
Yeah.
and time.
yeah, it's pretty good. I think I actually like this a lot. I think
And it's
good.
cool because a lot of this stuff is grounded enough that you feel like this could be a real thing. Like the whole thing where it's like the gardeners are these AI constructs meant to preserve, that were built by the civilization that was here, that are meant to preserve the planet as it is. Which is like, yeah, okay, well, I don't see why that couldn't happen, you know?
There's like a tinge of sadness that is around in that ending, because I don't remember the exact wording, but it's something to the effect of, like, you know, tomorrow morning everyone will find you,
Oh yeah,
and they'll
You
just
look-
say that you
died.
died
You're
of
in a-
glimmer,
yeah.
and they'll, you know, in this timeline they'll continue on sad that they've lost you, but they'll continue on, but you get an opportunity that they don't have to live through these other timelines now. And it's like there's like a little bit of, like, you know, you have the rare experience because of what's happened in the story to, like, understand the depth of everyone's loss when they find your corpse just outside the gate in the morning. And I thought that was a really nice and a really sad touch
Yeah.
on that ending.
And it should be, right? It's supposed to be a very bittersweet thing. You know, you are essentially immortal now.
Yep.
Yeah.
For all, you know, effects that could be. You know, you see this like ancient version of yourself that is just decked out in all these like data bands that are just the many things that happen through your many lives, which is it. Oh God, it's so bittersweet, and I just love the way they portray this sort of multiple timeline construction of their universe, for lack of a better word.
All right, let's talk about the other special endings.
Okay, so
I'm very interested in the depth of some of these because I've heard of some of them.
yeah,
But
so
I'm interested in how you get them and what they mean.
I'll talk through a few of the ones that I got, and then we can maybe get in some of the ones that you guys didn't see. So there is one ending called, I think it's just called Destroy the Stratospheric Destroyed, which I think of all of the endings in the game requires you to jump through the most hoops. So you have to do the transcend time ending first.
Okay.
You have to befriend congruence, which enable to befriend congruence, you have to let Professor Howell die.
Interesting.
You have to become second engineer during one of your playthroughs.
Okay.
And then when you start a new file, you have to pick ship engineering manuals as your childhood gift. And you have to pick congruence as your best friend. And then you are allowed to go to the ship, to the shield array, and you can just turn the shields off. And the stratosphere blows up when it tries to go through the wormhole. And you kill everybody.
10-year-old you just like shows up to the
I
old
don't
you.
feel like it this time.
Yeah.
10-year-old you shows up to ancient you, and ancient you's like, why?
No, so here's the best part. Here's the best part is after. So you do the destroy the stratospheric ending, and then the game ends, obviously.
Yeah.
And then you go start a new life, and it's like, yep, you're on Earth. Everything fucking sucks. And ancient you shows up and is like, I thought this is what you wanted. You blew up the wormhole. The wormhole is gone.
That's amazing.
And you're like, well, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was all going to be cool. No, your life is just horrible, and you live on Earth in this commune where you get attacked all the time. And everyone you know and love keeps dying because it's just constant war. And you're like, please let me go back to the fun, silly wormhole times. And it's like, all right, I guess I'll give you this one mulligan to do things right this time.
That's so good.
So it takes
That's
a lot.
so good.
It takes a lot of work to do that. I think it took me like 3 playthroughs to do all the prerequisites, but it was worth it because I got the whole lore. I got to learn so much more about the Earth as it was when we left it, which was really cool. So I actually felt super rewarded for taking the effort and spending all this time. And I got to know more about Tangent. I got to know more about the plague that they were working on to like eradicate all the alien life on Vertumna. It was really, really cool, and I'm glad I did it. Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like it could have been super lame. It could have been like, oh, I have to like do all these arbitrary things. But the nice thing about this game is in your multiple playthroughs, there will be points where it's like, oh, I've seen this dialogue before, so I can kind of just skip through it. I don't have to like read super carefully on everything. You kind of get a feeling for when the new things are happening versus the things that you can kind of just skip over, which I really appreciate.
I have a question. Is there a special ending for if you just pick all the delusion options?
I don't think so.
That sucks.
I don't think there's one for like that specifically. There are benefits. So if you don't get the transcend time ending, one of the other things you can do is just pick a bunch of wormhole options, which are basically the things that end up giving you delusions. So that's sort of the benefit of that. I think the main thing for the delusions is that there are like wild cards in the early game, which is a big plus. And like -1 is actually like a really good way to build a straight and when all of your cards are 0, 1s, and 2s. The other main special ending I got was disabling the array, which involves going into the swamps, finding the array in the swamps that helps control the AI.
Oh, there's an array in the swamp. I didn't know
There
that.
is.
Yep.
You have to go back there twice because the first time you go, the event that is in that place is, I think, like a manticore. It's like the special manticore.
Yeah.
And then the second time you go back, you find the array.
You see, I just didn't want to fucking spend any more time with Vase after the first time.
And so I literally did a playthrough. I was like, all right, on this playthrough, I'm gonna like do horrible things to the planet, and like I was like, I'm just gonna accept that like part of this playthrough is I'm gonna be a bad person because I didn't learn anything from Undertale. So essentially, you find the array, you go back, and you're like, hey, I need you guys to make a payload, like program a code that will just cause this thing to self-destruct, and you struggle to put the payload in, but you get it in, and then essentially it disables all the gardeners. So the glow attacks stop because there's nothing anymore to agitate the animals to attack the colony. Which is, it's weird in a way because that is, in theory, a good ending for the colony.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a neutral ending for the planet. Yeah. Like, if in the scope, if you don't know about all the humans that are also coming from Earth, you know, it's just one colony of humans. It's probably going to be fine for them to live as long as they're living smart along all this like alien flora, fauna, animals, in quotes.
Which, by the way, like, the thing that annoys me most about the Helios people coming and the state in which the stratospheric crew is like when you're learning about Earth history as a stratospheric colonist, it's like, yeah, colonizing's pretty bad, which Cal calls out as like, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And capitalism bad.
Yep.
And, like, you learn all these things, and then, like, the people in the stratospheric aren't willing to fight the people on the Helios harder about just, like, genociding everything and doing exactly what the whole colony and the children on the colony are taught are bad.
Yeah. Well,
that is one of the endings, is genociding everything.
The Helios people are the only armed ones.
Yeah,
like your guys have tasers.
Yeah.
And the Helios people
have guns.
The Helios people have so much weaponry that it just dwarfs you.
Yeah.
Right? They literally let two faceless into the colony and blow them up.
Yeah. It's just frustrating. I wish that I'm salty that my very combat focused build didn't allow me to fight them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
well,
that's I get that.
Most of the combat stuff is meant to be done in the swamps. Yeah. It's meant to be your tag teaming with Vase to be like the most heroic. Now there is an ending where you do genocide all the life on the planet, and that's the one where you assist Tangent.
Where you help Tangent and then don't convince her to stop.
So whenever you get one of those things, it's like +1 to Tangent's cure. That's like what she's working towards.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. When it says helped Tangent,
I was like,
that's what you're helping.
Whenever I did that, I just assumed it was for Glimmer.
Yeah. Nope.
And I eventually cured Glimmer.
Glimmer cure is
the Glimmer cure is it's just called the Glimmer cure. Yeah. Yep. Now, something I do really like, I'm so glad this is a thing they put in the game, is there are specific things that once you do them for the first time, you don't really have to do them again. Like after you've cured the Glimmer the first time, in your subsequent playthroughs, you can basically just walk into the lab and it's like, you just like, oh, how do we cure the Glimmer? I don't know, guys. Maybe we just try sunlight, and it takes you like one month instead of like
thank God.
After you eat the like crazy beans that drives up everyone's like testosterone and estrogen levels, everyone goes like hormone crazy. The next playthrough, you can be like, hey, we shouldn't eat these beans, and then they do some research and they're like, yeah, it's a good thing we didn't eat these beans, and you get like +3 colony food from that because they don't cultivate the crop.
Yes, I did that on my second playthrough, and that is like single-handedly doing that is what caused my mom to not die.
Yeah.
Like,
so Jesus. I'm glad that the time stuff is not just I know what options to pick, or like I'm going to do things a little differently this time. There actually are like these very tangential benefits to, if you were successful before, then it is easier to be successful again. But also, if there are reasons why you don't want to be successful, then it's easy to find those routes.
Tangent's benefit is
I'm going
wiping out
to do unspeakable things.
One thing I really like about the secret endings, I've noticed as you've been reading them, is it is very easy to pick out, and they're not like super heavy-handed with it, but it's very easy to pick out what things you need to go check out on subsequent playthroughs.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I did for my first playthrough, there was like basically the colony before the Helios arrived starved to death, right? And on the second playthrough, I told you I was going to go check out 2 things. I was like, I need to go check out the valley where all that food is, because I missed an event that intrigued me that was the sponge grass stuff.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I told you I was going to go check out was the what's the word that they call it? The alien, the something domain, convergent domain.
Yeah, the convergent domain.
The other thing I told you I was going to check out was the convergent domain stuff, and I checked. It turns out I didn't have enough stats for any of the convergent domain stuff, but both of those things ended up being very important, and they convey really well what things are like. There's like something important about this.
Yeah.
Like maybe if you had like a little bit of a different build, this could be something really important.
Yep.
Because it turns out both of those things were like the key to something really important that I missed on my first playthrough.
So the other two secret endings that we'll touch on, I guess maybe three. Two of them are like very closely related, where one of them is just run away. You just run away from the colony, and the other one is you join the gardeners. Both of them require you to have good relationships with Dis. Joining the gardeners requires you to have a good relationship with Sim as well.
How do you get a good relationship with Sim? Do you have to flirt with him?
You give him stuff and flirt with him.
You give him stuff and flirt with him. Yeah,
you have to go out exploring a lot, and you give him anything.
Now, the other thing the interesting thing about Sim is, as opposed to most of the other characters in the game, Sim's friendship meter goes up in chunks rather than like bit by bit. You'll get like plus like 10. I don't remember if it's 10 or 20, but you get like plus 10 or plus 20. And really it's like you give them things and you flirt with them a little bit. Basically they will divulge information about the planet, and then they will go tell you to meet them somewhere else. And then when you go meet them elsewhere, you get a 10 chunk. You get a 10 or a 20 chunk.
My second playthrough, Sim fucking died.
What? How? What?
Yeah.
So I was just doing some screwing around exploring towards the end of my playthrough, and in that end of the playthrough, I went to like the second place you can explore, and Sim was fighting two manticores, and
you can just not help.
I did help. I helped, and then more manticores showed up, and so Sim's like, just run away, and then you run away, and Sim like drags another manticore down a cliff with him and dies.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's wild.
My first playthrough, I had combat 100, and I had like 6 copies of fucking winning the strength competition.
Yeah.
So like, I just was like, I'm gonna fight everything. So that is insane. I didn't even. That's
I
really
won the
cool.
combat.
I had
won
that
the combat.
I had that scene, but then after they jump off the cliff, they just like appear like 10 seconds later.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought they would be fine, but they never showed up again.
No, they were. I was in a scene where they were fighting like the flying things in the ridge. And one of them like picked them up and like,
yeah, that was the one I got with him fighting. He never fought manticores, or at least I never saw him fight manticores. That's really cool. That's so cool.
And so the last ending, which is like more of an extension of the career endings, is you can just negotiate peace between the humans and the Xenos.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If your friendship with Sim is high enough and you do a couple of like specific things, then during the glow in the last year, you can do 3 subsequent challenges where you broker peace between the Xenos and the humans.
I want to try and get that ending. That sounds really neat.
So that's kind of the gist of most of the. There are a few others where it's like colony destroyed or whatever, but I mean that can happen in a number of ways. So, but I really appreciate. I think the biggest thing I like about this game is how well rounded it is and how much it does reward you for doing multiple playthroughs, which is something that narrative games can so rarely accomplish. And it was one of the main reasons why I wanted to cover this game for the podcast, was because I really liked the world building. I really liked a lot of the theming and the messaging, and I really liked that they were able to successfully pull off a game where they were like, we're going to do multiple playthroughs of this. We are encouraging you as a player to do this, and we will reward you for doing so.
I also really like that there's just like ways to track things you've done, and like that you remember stuff, because like all that stuff is really annoying in multiple playthrough games.
Yes.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. This was really good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed my time with the game. I enjoyed first playthrough a lot more. I would say if you haven't played this game already for some reason and you've listened to this whole thing, definitely take things a little riskier in your playthrough. Definitely be a little bit more daring, a little bit more experience seeking. You're going to end up having a much more fulfilling experience.
This is a game where you want to fuck around and find out.
Yeah, a lot like Disco Elysium in that sense. I think you compared it in that way to me where you were like, yeah, just do stuff. You're like,
don't save scum because you want to actually experience things the way the writers intended.
yeah,
You know, you were like, oh, I have to save my mom. I have to save my mom. I was like,
yeah, just relax.
This is a planet where horrible things are going to happen because you are literally people on a world just trying to figure out how the hell things work. Bad things are going to happen. It is inevitable.
Towards like the back half of playthrough 1 was when that really, your words really kind of sunk in with me to just like really just let it ride. And it was very rewarding.
Well, because the other thing is like, you're a kid. You're supposed to be stupid and terrible at things. Like, how in the world is a 14-year-old going to figure out how to get enough food for all the people in the colony to have enough to eat?
By having enough life science skills and then going to the valley and then finding the sponge grass and then you harvest it. And
But you're not gonna figure that out the first time you do it.
You're right. I didn't. I had to come back.
You have to have multiple playthroughs or multiple life experiences of the situation to figure it out and put it together perfectly, which I like. And like one other thing I want to touch on is like I really like the deck building aspect of this game, insofar as you start as like this like shitty kid who's not good at things, but the things you're trying to do are also not that hard, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm trying to learn about humanity as I'm just like reading books and stuff. That's not that hard. But then like as you grow up and you get better at doing things, the things you're doing also get harder. I know that's like a very simple like concept as far as like game design, right? But it works really well in tandem with the concept of a sort of coming of age narrative. And I really like how they use the deck building aspect, even if it's not perfect. I really like how they used it to weave you getting a better understanding of how your character is good or bad at things.
Yeah. It was really nice. I could have taken or left the deck building specifically, but that was a really cool aspect of that system where it's like if you're fighting an alien monster, the memory of or the lessons you learned from crawling as a child probably not going to be very helpful. The lessons you learned when you and Nemi beat the shit out of each other for days on end, that's probably very helpful. And like it correlates as such.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be it for I Was a Teenage Exocolonist. Any closing thoughts, fellas?
Definitely deserved the Games for Impact nomination.
Might have deserved to win, but we haven't. We're going to play. We have a few other games from that list that we're going to be playing.
What won that year? Stray?
No, it was we're playing the game in the future. It's called As Dusk Falls.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I don't think it deserved it, but
I'm gonna tell everybody that the how long to beat main plus extra time, which is like 21 hours as of recording, is bullshit.
That's
not
so
accurate.
wrong.
It like main plus extra of this game is playing it like maybe 4 or 5 times.
It's like 10 hours just in my first playthrough just because I was hemming and hawing about like what to do.
yeah. And also, like my first time playing through, I talked to everyone every single month, and eventually I was like, okay, I don't need to do that. I don't need to talk to everyone. You need to talk. Yeah, you need to talk when they have an ellipsy or when you need to give them a gift, and that's like it. Definitely check out this game. You can find it on Steam. That's currently, I believe, the only place you can find it. Next episode, we're going to be talking about Yakuza 7, Like a Dragon.
I'm so excited.
We've been working on playing this game for about 4 months now. I think it's been a long time.
This has been a big project, and I'm so excited to talk about it.
But definitely tune in because that's going to be an episode you're not going to want to miss.